In politics, everything means something to something else, and delving into those sometimes takes a lot of time. It's very boring. It is somewhat ethereal. We talk about the double election quite a bit here on Tokyo on Fire. I'd like to explore that a little bit more. A double election is when the upper house goes through its regularly scheduled election, and the prime minister, either through his own power or maybe through a vote of no confidence, the members of the lower house also have to stand for election. It's only happened twice in post-war history. It is a very big deal. Each time it has happened, the LDP has won by a landslide, and it seems to me that this is a great option for the Prime Minister. What do you think about this, Michael? This is a huge deal, and it takes a lot of moving parts to kind of get to where they want to go.
But when the announcement was made this week on the new deal involving the separate rates for food in the new consumption tax rise, everybody then immediately flipped over and started talking about the possibility of a double election. Because the last time the consumption tax rise came up for some kind of political question, where Mr. Abe delayed the raising of the consumption tax, he immediately called a House of Representative election as a referendum on this decision. Right. Now that they've made another adjustment to the consumption tax, the concept is that he's going to have another one of these referenda. Now, that's what everybody's talking about this week. What happens next week, who knows, and in the new year, when there'll be new issues. However, you have to say for Mr. Abe, even though we've just had an election in 2014, the cycle's supposed to be 4 years. Right. Why is he rushing to it? You would see that even though it's only going to be 18 months, that the temptation must be tremendous. There is an opportunity to force the opposition to fight two elections simultaneously and absolutely bankrupt themselves, trying to defend their seats in the House of Councilors and at the same time trying to stay alive in the House of Representatives. And this goes including the biggest opposition party, the DPJ, which is in a terribly precarious position in the House of Councilors, to force them to try to save themselves in the House of Councilors and try to make some inroads in the House of Representatives. It's got to be tempting in terms of simply overwhelming. As you have said, it's been landslides both times it's been tried before. Let's completely wipe them out.
Well, the LDP is on a bit of a roll, and you've got to imagine that they have a little bit more of a war chest than the opposition parties do for an election. Plus, the advantage of calling that election is it gives you a tremendous strategic power because your opposition never knows one way or the next.
Yeah, they'd like to prepare, but you'd have to find candidates. Now, they're already struggling to find candidates to deal with the 121 seats that are coming up in the House of Councilors. To think that they then have to add to those 121 a further 495 or 400 or so extra candidates for the House of Representatives, you know that would just simply blow them out. And in the Conte, they're talking about that.
Doesn't the LDP already have enormous power? Back to your point earlier about the Machiavellian aspect of Abe, it seems like it's just not enough. So do you want just one party in both houses and then have your prime minister the same party? So it just goes against the grain of what I'm used to with the checks and balances approach to managing public affairs.
No, I think that's exactly the drive of the Prime Minister and the LDP. We are in a coalition government right now, and it's uncomfortable. We really don't like it. Is there anything we can do so that we don't have to share that power? And I think that point comes with the double election.
How does that improve the economy? How does that help gender relations?
That's a great point, because the controversy that's going on inside the Conte right now is this is a political decision. It should be an economic decision, and the Prime Minister went with the political decision, which was the reduced tax rate for foodstuffs will remain at 8%, even though you, the finance minister, wants it to go up to 10. I'm going to keep it down to 8, and I'm going to get a lot of goodwill from that. But the better part...
Well, the goodwill he's going to get is from the Komeito, and it's very, very solid block of voters who will become... who is just to reinforce their loyalty, which they've It's never really been in question, but they're going to get a really nice, the leaders of the Komeito, a nice, sweet little present for Christmas. And that's what that's about. Whatever.
Right.
So, and it's sugar-free.
It is. It definitely is politics. It's not the economy.
It's not, and it's not economics. It's not fiscal balance. It's throwing fiscal balance right out the window. But that's politics.
The consumption rate, though, eventually will go up to 10%. So the Christmas cake was delaying
that's the thing. They're going to say that for foodstuffs,
it will never go up.
It will stay at 8%.
It'll stay at 8.
And they're now fiddling with. We were discussing here about whether they should have the newspapers at the special rate. They're fiddling with that. Mm-hmm. They're putting that in so that the newspaper. And it's exactly the way we said, so that the newspapers get confused about the talking about whether it's fiscal balance versus politics.
Right.
That this is good for us. So how should
watch what you say?
How should we play this?
Yeah.
It's been a
it's like I said earlier. Everything relates to everything else, and we were talking earlier about the press clubs and press freedom and self-censorship. And if newspapers are in, there is a good argument that a healthy democracy requires freedom of information. They require newspapers. It's not just water and fresh vegetables. They also need access to good information. And so you kind of buy off the publishers with that kind of a tax break. And I think that's a clever idea. But once again, this idea that it's not the economy, it's politics, is that once we come up to this election, and you mark my words, once we come up to the election, the prime minister decides, you know that 8% that I was talking about, that we're going to go up to 10%? Let's just chill for a while and have the election first. The combination is there for everybody just to fall in love with this new prime minister. That's not going to help the economy, but that sure is going to solidify.
Well, it's going to help the economy. It's not going to help the fiscal balance. And eventually that bill will come due. Mm-hmm. Though in the current environment globally, with such low interest rates, the Federal Reserve has finally decided to go up from the zero base. But otherwise, global interest rates are really low. There's plenty of money available.
Right. So, the stock market reflected that. And here's the key, though. What this country needs, what this economy needs, is a boost and a vision and hope. And, I mean, they have been in the doldrums for so long. And I think, I don't know, I would not put it past this prime minister
You're
to pull off something
on
like
this?
that. I'm very bullish on it, yes.
And the problem for me with the double election and all of that is that the Abe administration, even without all of these sweeteners, is very close to get to that position you were describing, where they would have
the power.
They would have not just 2/3 in the lower house, but 2/3 in the upper house, which opens the door for constitutional revision. Now, I'm for revising the Constitution. There are some things in it, but hear me out on this. That actually is Abe's worst nightmare, and here's why. Up until now, Abe and his fellow conservatives have always lived off resentment. They live off of, we need to change this country, but it's the Asahi Shimbun has made Japanese less proud about being Japanese, or the Komeito, it's pacifist, so we can't do the security issues that we need to do. If they get their 2/3 majorities, they'll be on the spot. There'll be no more excuses. So it's like in St. Augustine in the Confessions, God make me chaste, but not yet. If they do the double election, though, they'll be on.
All eyes on them.
All eyes on them.
All eyes on them. But I think this appeals to the prime minister's drive to create history. I mean, he's been compelled since he was a little boy. You know, his granddaddy and his father, and probably his son too. I want to make history.
If Abe had a son or a child of any sort at that point,
but he had a lot to make up.
At least that we know of.
His first term was really forgettable. I never hear any reference to it. He was in office less than a year.
No, exactly a year. 366 days.
Okay. He was in office 1 year, but he was also quite ill. So when he stepped down, it was really due to his health, right? So this Abe 2.0, or now 2.2, with maybe the double elections, it really is giving him a sense of, legacy and drive and going down as a great statesman for Japan and international statesman for the world.
But he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
The criteria for greatness in Japanese prime ministerships is not achievements. The standard criteria...
Longevity?
It's longevity. He's now already the 5th in post-war history. He's 5th on the list in terms of the number of days.
That's not good enough for him, though.
By the end of this regular diet session, he'll pass Hayato Ikeda. And then he's got the super greats are the only persons ahead of him. Koizumi's ahead of him still, but not by much. And then Sato and Yoshida Shigeru. You know, all he has to do is sit tight. He doesn't have to go for the big win. But that's what the double election would be.
So there's really kind of a sports analogy here. It reminds me of the guys with the highest number of points, or Kobe, as he, you know, or Kobe Bryant. I said Kobe. Kobe Bryant for the LA Lakers. This is his last year. So there's all talk about, you know, is he one of the greatest and where does he rank on this list? So, yeah, longevity used to be the golden prize in Japan.
And it still is.
And I guess it still is. But we know through his relationship with Kishi, as he started out in his speech before Congress in April, that it's so much more than just the longevity. It's really about reshaping Japan's image. And if you're going to bring in just Japanese-speaking ambassadors to remind them that we want to show just the shiny version of Japan, then so be it. But I hope that the interest in Japan continues, but that there is interest that includes dialogue and dissent and disagreement.
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons why we initially launched Tokyo on Fire in the first place was specifically because of this prime minister. He's really turned the tables and the entire way that we look at Japanese politics. And for us, this is intensely interesting. We'd like to delve into it. We'd like to examine it. We'd like to analyze it and make it more interesting for you as well. Please provide your comments to us. We love what we're doing. We love hearing from you. Please hit subscribe on your YouTube channel and tell your friends about Tokyo on Fire.